Mr. President, I have been on the front line for the proper agenda for prosperity, for development. My job is to go out there and be able to carefully articulate government programs, projects, and policies. The question then remains, Mr. President, to whom? To the Liberian people. Mr. President, communication will be incomplete if we don't have a feedback or a response. It will be like, for example, a monologue or a lullaby. Therefore, when we get out there to take the proper agenda for prosperity and development to the people, as well as carefully articulate government programs, policies, and projects, Mr. President, we interact with people. And these people have a way of getting back to you who sent me and repose your confidence in me. It is in this light that these two issues have popped up, Mr. President. And after carefully examining them, it will not be in my interest to only beg you, but to give you specifics why I am begging you and to offer the suggestions that I believe God will help you make an informed decision about. Mr. President, on the issue of payroll harmonization, Mr. President, I beg you. You will agree with me that as a government, Mr. President, you and I know that it is the best policy framework economically for our administration. Mr. President, make no mistake that 55,000 people are not affected by payroll harmonization. Mr. President, another 15% paychecks will go up drastically. Mr. President, only 9% of our total workforce in your government, Mr. President, is affected by this. The majority of them happens to be people like me and those who were paid by their friends, who had the exclusive authority to pay them whatever they wanted to pay them, Mr. President. So it is the best policy framework for economic enhancement and to be able to resuscitate our, if not dismal economy, fragile economy. Mr. President, you are on track. However, my appeal on both issues is relative to timing. Mr. President, let me give you a few examples. When we counsel drug addicts on the street, we do not just take the drugs or the alcohol from them. They will go into what we call cold turkey. Anything that is abrupt have negative and positive consequences. Mr. President, when the political cartel decided to pay their people that did not worth getting $2,000 or $3,000, that were not supposed to get the $2,000 in the first place, we were not there. Mr. President, you were not there. But those people went and rented homes. They put their children in school. Their social life and everything seemed to be bordered around that $3,000. If at all today we find out that they were not supposed to get it, Mr. President, most of them, if not all of them, are our people. Therefore, we should have done enough job, Mr. President, which is not your fault and my fault. It came up that, hey, we want to help you, but these are the issues and these are the problems. You and your entire government, including myself and the technical economic management team, saw the problem. They recognized the problem. Mr. President, you are less than 2 years in office. Everything would not have come to you right there and then. And so when it came, you saw it and the problem was real. The problem was authentic. The solution is in sight. And yes, Mr. President, you are on course. But I came to beg you to remember that I am aware, you are aware, and the vast majority of the Liberian people are aware that the people who want to help us do not want to hurt us. Some of us ask the problem. For example, if the IMS want to help us now, why did they not help us before? When they saw the $590 million budget, why did they not do something then? When oil was in the country and all the US dollar was pouring in, why? When the extractive industry, iron ore, gold, diamond, those prices were soaring, why? The question, Mr. President, is not why now. The issue is, do we need help? Yes, we do, Mr. President. They want to help us. I don't believe, and you don't believe, and your government does not believe that they've come to hurt us. So, Mr. President, I'm begging you to talk to them and make the case that they did not come to hurt us. They came to help us. In this regard, Mr. President, not enough education was done to the Liberian people to say this is what we're going to do 90 days ahead of the implementation. So those who made $2,000 may have taken a $500 home, may have taken a car that they're paying for, may have put their children in school, all because all they know is that they make 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000. Mr. President, those people number only 9,000. I am one of those. But those of us that you appointed and brought with you, you brought us to serve the people and not for the people to serve us. Therefore, our cut right now is justified. But to the ordinary people who knew that they made 1,000 or 2,000 that will be affected by this, Mr. President, I'm begging you to consider that an abrupt cut will hurt our people and hurt our government. Because no one expected it to be this way. And none of our citizens planned for it. Therefore, I have come to beg you to give them small time to plan for it. Mr. President, what do I mean by this? This is what I mean. If a person made $1,000 and through payroll harmonization, they will now make $400, Mr. President, we need to remember that when they took their house or they rented the apartment, they did so knowing that they made $1,000. They did not anticipate or expect that they would be dropped to 300 or 400. They put their children in some of the good schools, Mr. President. They bought a car. They did everything knowing that they made 1,000. To know now that they make 400, how do they work around their personal budget, Mr. President? Is it their fault? No, it is not their fault, Mr. President. It is the fault of the political cartel. Are you right for trying to correct it now? Yes, Mr. President, you are right. Mr. President, is the timing right? Mr. President, in my honest view, Mr. President, the timing is wrong. Here is why I've said so. I've given you one reason. Mr. President, if you give me 60 days or 90 days to adjust myself, Mr. President, I will find a place to move, knowing that I don't make $1,000 anymore. Mr. President, I will make arrangement to take my child out of that school that I pay 150 US for. Mr. President, I will decide to use my car only on the weekends and begin to take keke and taxi to work. Mr. President, the food I used to eat before, I will cut back. Mr. President, my social life, I would decide to downsize. Mr. President, there are so many things I will do to embrace my new salary. It is in this regard, Mr. President, I have come to appeal to you not to abandon such sound economic policy. When you came to be president, the Liberian people appealed to you to bridge the gap in income disparity. Mr. President, the PAPD is in no way intended to hurt anybody but to help our country. To give equal work for equal pay. That is the intent. But Mr. President, sometimes we can have unintended consequences. The intent is good, but the short-term consequences is unintended. Mr. President, you've never said that you've come to hurt the Liberian people, but rather to help them. It is in this regard, as a Liberian citizen, I want to appeal to you to carry out what I will term a 90 days common adjustment period. A 90 days common adjustment period. I will come, Mr. President, to explain the 90 days common adjustment period with regard to payroll harmonization. What do I mean by 90 days common adjustment period? Because it is for the common people, the ordinary people, the Liberian citizens. Mr. President, forget about us. Forget about us. You brought us to serve, and not for the people to serve us. So we are presidential appointees. What do I mean by consider? I'm begging you for a 90-day common adjustment period. It's because we did not do a good enough job, Mr. President, to prepare our people for this. I repeat with honesty, we did not do a good enough job to prepare our people for this. Therefore, the 60 or 90-day adjustment period would allow them to adjust to the new salary structure. If 15,000 people paycheck will go up, 9,000 people, some will say, should not be our worry. It should. Why should it be our worry? Why should we give them time to adjust? Mr. President, here is why. The Liberian people spoke recently at the ballot boxes. They said they were not happy with the economy. They manifested that through the way they voted. Mr. President, they told us that the hardship was too much. And due to the payroll harmonization, Mr. President, we had a little breach where our payroll was not regularized. People took pay after July 26. When it was time for July pay, it is now that they are even getting that. And because of the payroll harmonization and the automated process, Mr. President, you will agree with me that the 35% is in. But they will have to open US dollars account to get the 65% in US dollars. Therefore, we need to beg you. I have come to beg you to give them either 60 days or 90 days to adjust so that it sinks in that I used to make 1,000, but I now make 400. Therefore, I need to adjust within 90 days. Mr. President, if at all you say, Eugene, you are asking me to adjust, how do you want me to proceed with this adjustment? Mr. President, the person who make the 1,000, who made the 1,000, who is now being told that they will now make 400, I would like for you to carry out the adjustment in twofold. You can proceed, Mr. President, to do it by what I call incremental adjustment or fixed adjustment. Mr. President, you can do it by incremental adjustment or fixed adjustment. What do I mean by this? Fixed adjustment. Fixed adjustment means I am not going to just yank this $600 that I'm cutting away from you, because you need time to adjust. So in the next 90 days, which is 3 months, I will bring it down 200. You will make 800. Another 200. You will make 600. Another 200. You will be down to your 400. Fixed adjustment. Meaning that $200 is fixed. Instead of yanking the 1,000 from you, we'll start taking it from you, the 600, sorry. Instead of me taking the 600 from you, just like that, I will take it from you 200, 200, 200. Meaning that adjustment is fixed. Meaning that adjustment is fixed. I will take it from you 200, 200, 200 until I get you down to 400 so that you can adjust. Incremental adjustment. Incremental adjustment. Instead of taking the $600 from you, in the next 2 months, I will take the first month, I will take $100. The second month, incremental, I will take 200. That's 300 right there. The third month, I will take the 300. That's incremental adjustment. That will allow our people to adjust to this new policy. And it will not hurt as much as if we just yank it right now. Because they have rent to pay. They have expenses. They have children in school. And we did not prepare them for this. Because we ourselves were not able to prepare for this, Mr. President. We have never sought to hurt our people. That is what I mean, that we were not prepared. Nor do we want small money for our people. We want more money for our people. We are giving more people 15,000 people more money. But 9,000 is significant, Mr. President. And given the last 3 months of economic situation, irregularities in our payroll, Mr. President, as a result of this good economic policy relative to this harmonization process, Mr. President, I can only say it's good. But I came to beg, knowing that it's good, I came to beg that you consider my appeal for either incremental or fixed adjustment that will lead to our people getting adjusted to this new phenomenon and this new economic policy that is meant to help our country. If we can leave from almost $570 to $590 million in our budget to 530, 540, Mr. President, you are on course, yeah? But I came to beg. I will tell you when I'm done with the 3-day free calls how it will help our government and help you politically, economically, and as well as socially. Mr. President, the second thing I came to appeal to you and to beg you for is the 3-day free calls. If at all there was a delay in the paychecks for the month of July and the month of June, you and I know, Mr. President, that many people got their June paycheck after June and after July 26. And the reason behind that, I have explained over and over to the people. The payroll harmonization was a must. And the process was on course. Therefore, Finance Minister Weah and his team had to work with that in keeping with payroll. It was difficult for them. So that caused the delay. So if we got June pay after July 26th and our people were hurt, if we are now getting July pay as a result of the same payroll harmonization and the automated payment, then of course, Mr. President, we must look at the economic implication while we make this appeal to you, Mr. President, on behalf of our people. Mr. President, our people paid for 3 days, $1 for 3 days free call. I'll give you 5 reasons, Mr. President, why I believe that I need to beg you on this subject matter to consider also them for the 90 days adjustment period. For that, it can even be 60 days. Mr. President, when I woke up, I knew that our people spoke during the election of the hardship. When I look at the announcement carried by Orange and MTM, it said by directive of the LTA. Mr. President, I am aware and you are aware that it was like a tripartite arrangement and agreement between the cellular companies, the government of Liberia, and the consumers. Mr. President, you are aware that it was not the government decision, that it was a win-win situation for the citizens, for the cell phone companies, and for the government. But when I look on the announcement, it said by directive of the LTA under your administration. And Mr. President, when I think about Kemi Weeks being at Orange, and Honorable Weah being at Lunster, and Lunster and Orange saying it is by your directive, when I know the truth, no. Mr. President, the number one reason I always gave is never the first. I will start with number 5. The election message was clear that our people said they were unhappy, that they were facing hardships and the economy was bad. Therefore, again, Mr. President, the 3-day free calls change policy is correct. Again, the timing. The question is, Eugene, will we ever get out of this economic situation? No, Mr. President. That is why I'm asking for an adjustment period. Because when the period is done, and you come by and say, no, the hardship, I will tell you, you were given time to adjust. You were given either 60 days or 90 days to adjust. You should have adjusted by now. Our economic problems will never be finished because men's wants are insatiable according to economics. We will always need something, we will always want something. Therefore, Mr. President, the adjustment period allows us to allow our people to adjust to some of these new economic policy. The election message was clear to us, and thank God, Mr. President, we are bouncing back. We are bouncing back higher than ever before. So, if the hardships are there, if the economic situation is there, then, Mr. President, everyone have the right to beg you. I too have the right to beg you to reconsider a decision on a 3-day free call. And here is why. Our people say it was hard. Our people say they were unhappy with the hardship. That is at number 5. Number 4, we all know that we are taking on the payroll harmonization that is going to see some people make higher, some people not affected, and a small amount of people, 9,000 of them, see a pay cut. But the process comes with some hitches. The automated payment, Mr. President, where people have to adjust. Secondly, the delay in pay. Imagine people, Mr. President, took their June pay after July. The July pay is what they are now taking. And it will be regularized, Mr. President. But such is the time and such is the situation. This time, it is irregular and things are a little bit high. Mr. President, I am appealing to you. You know that this particular time is hard. It won't be hard 3 months or 2 months from now. Payroll will be regularized. No excuse. People would have adjusted. No excuse. Therefore, Mr. President, if you give them 60 days, we'll be back to no 3-day free call. But it will give them time to adjust and there will be no excuse. This time is the school season. If a person will pay $1 for 45 minutes, Mr. President, a lot of people don't do research. Please, the average person for a telephone conversation talks about 3.3 minutes. Liberians don't talk for 3.3 minutes. You can look at Coro.com, you can Google it, you can do a research, Mr. President. If you give a person 45 minutes for 3 days, Liberians, Mr. President, I'm sorry, you know them. You know your people. In the first 4 hours, the 45 minutes will be finished. Then they have to go get another one. Then they have to go get another one. Maybe $3 a day. I mean $3 for 3 days. That's different from $1 for 3 days, Mr. President. But Mr. President, these 3 days will not be forever. If we give them 60 days or 90 days to adjust, they will have to adjust. They will have to adjust. So I appeal. I'm begging you. Number 3. At number 3 spot, the payroll harmonization process, which I just talked about. Which means they took June pay at the end of July, Mr. President. And that's because we're doing the right thing, Mr. President. We're getting this payroll harmonization on. We're getting it on. We're doing it. July pay is what they're now getting. August pay have not kicked in yet. They got school season right now around the corner. And the payroll harmonization is in process, Mr. President. So, I beg for that too to be given an adjustment period consideration of either 60 to 90 days. I'm a Liberian citizen, Mr. President. I serve at your will and pleasure. I'm begging you. And Mr. President, you know I'm coming. I got the midfield covered. You know that. Mr. President, at number 2 is the economic crisis that we find ourselves in. Therefore, like the payroll harmonization, we did not do enough of a good job, Mr. President, on this whole LTA issue. I'll be the first to admit they are big corporations, they have monies, they cannot tell you, Mr. President, that they could not have ran 3 months of advertisement or have educated our people through radio, through jingles, and what have you, sufficiently enough. Meaning, I'm not saying that they did not do it. But no, Mr. President, 60 days or 90 days would allow everybody to adjust that indeed this is coming. But I'm doing this for you because when payroll harmonization came in, things were tough. You took your June pay way at the end of July. You are now taking your July pay. And I know the way you can talk. Mr. President, put some sense of humor in it. I know the G's. I know the gossip. I know the problem. You want to share it with somebody. You want to talk about the hardship with somebody. So 45 minutes for 3 days will not be enough. Mr. President, sitting at number 1. The number 1 reason why you should allow for the adjustment period for the 3-day calls is the fact that the two companies put up an announcement. They said by directive of the LTA, Mr. President, they did not say in consultation or in collaboration with the LTA and the consumers, we are pleased. No. Look at the announcement again, Mr. President. By directive of the LTA. That is by saying by directive of the President, by extension, Mr. President. So today, I come to appeal to you to consider them for 60 days or 90 days to adjust. For you, Mr. President, I'm begging you, I'm appealing to you to give your people an adjustment period that they cannot come back to say, oh, no, Mr. President. No, Mr. President, it wouldn't happen. You would have given them a period to adjust to these new economic realities that are good for our country. You would have given them a period to adjust. They will have no complaint. And when I speak, I will speak with zeal. I will speak with enthusiasm. Because nobody will be able to stand in front of me and say, oh, my manager called my pay that. You just can't talking. I'll be like, look, you were getting 60 days or 90 days to adjust to your new pay. You could have found a house, a new place that fitted your salary, your new salary. You could have put your child in a new school that worked around your salary. Your spaghetti and meat you used to eat, you would have adjusted to at least 1 or 2 days dry rice and fried fish. You were given enough time to adjust. You were given enough time by our beloved president to adjust. So you cannot come here now and say, yeah, this and that. No. You should have adjusted by now. So there's no way you can complain. For some of us, we did not have the time to adjust because we signed up for it. So do not come here and complain. It's equal work for equal pay. But it was not the president that paid you that kind of money. It was the previous government that did the wrong. Yet still the president was passionate enough to allow you to adjust so you can have excuses. So you can say the people threw you out of your house abruptly because the government took an abrupt decision. So you cannot say that the school threw your children out because your paycheck went from 1,000 to 400. Thank you, Michelle Juperi, because if any opposition sitting here and say to themselves that Minister Fahngon coming to join us or he going against the government, I want you to think again. I am not stupid. I'm smart. I know that. And I'm smart enough to know not to even venture around opposition camp. Even $10 million they put in front of me, I will reject it with like 1/10 of a second. You think I don't know you opposition people?